All right, this is Chat with Deidre radio show, Beauty Queen Reporter Special, and Miss Florida Reporter Lifetime. And tonight I have a special guest. His name is J Brett Salazar. Are you on the line?
Hi, this is Brett. How are you?
Hi. I'm good. How are you? Thank you for calling in tonight.
Absolutely. And thank you for inviting me.
Of course. I definitely have seen you online. I know you're a friend of Dawn, and I was just reading your story, and it's incredibly impactful. So I just would love for you to just introduce yourself and your story about, child molestation and rape and things that you went through in your childhood. If you can just tell us about your story and what you've been through and how that has impacted you and how that brought you closer to the Lord.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to share that. And we love Dawn Reese. She's awesome, and she's so friendly with everyone and just absolutely has such a great positive outlook on life. So I really appreciate her as well. Well, my name is J Brett Salazar. The J stands for Hyman, but I go by my middle name, Brett. And I was born in Corpus Christi. My father abandoned me at the age of 5. My sister is 13 years older than I, and her father had died. We have two different dads. Her father died when she was a very young age. Mom worked as a waitress, trying to make money, trying to pay the bills. We lived from place to place. Mom rented, and it was really hard growing up as a child. So a lot of the times we had to walk, or we get a family ride, or we take the bus, or sometimes the cab. So growing in that life, without the dad, that was the seed of at the age of around the age of 5. I only have like 3 memories of him, and one of the memories was my mom and him went to the movies. I don't remember what movie it was. As you get older, you forget some things.
Right.
So I sat in between them, and I remember asking my dad if he was my father, and he never responded. So at the time, my mind wasn't fully developed as an adult to understand and comprehend his body language and to be able to understand. But looking back, that was something happened spiritually. That was a seed of rejection that I kind of knew in my heart, but I couldn't explain it. And that caused a lack of or low self-esteem in most of my teenage and 20s, and obviously some early 30s. But around the same age of 5 years old, I was molested twice, and they were babysitters. Again, my mom worked as a waitress, so she had to do what she could, and she had to leave me with babysitters. And so she left me with this one lady. This lady had, like, I don't know, she must have been in her early 30s. She had several kids, and I think there's maybe about 5 or 6. I don't really remember the actual number, but I remember there was a lot of kids. And one of her teenage son, molested me. The lady who was babysitting me, she went out with her friends for that weekend. I think it was a Friday or Saturday. And so the teenager, I was going to say little boy, the teenager drew me to the bathroom and molested me. And there was another time where my mom left me with, and it's not my mom's fault at all. I don't blame her at all. I know that she had the best interest at heart, trying to look out for me and take care of me. So she left me with another babysitter. It was a married couple, husband and wife, and they were in their 60s. And the wife, I think she left for a little bit to do something, and she came back. But the man had, molested me. So, and the wife had caught him, and she, hit him with the fly swatter. So that was kind of a little bit of different things happening in my life. But where you're talking about, like, the rape part, that part was when I was a baby, my sister was taking care of me. So at that time, this is before, obviously, so my sister was babysitting me. My mom had to go to work, and there was a gentleman that was lived in the neighborhood, and from what I gathered from my sister, she had told me some information about this. And so what happened was the young gentleman was watching the house, and just like waiting for that special moment to go in and take advantage of the babysitter. And so that's what happened. My mom left for work, and the guy came in and saw me on the floor with the blanket, and picked me up and put a knife on my throat and basically said to the babysitter, I will kill him if you don't sleep with me. So she had no choice. And she felt she had no choice, and she kind of pretty much did what she did.
Wow. So all that is very heavy, and it's interesting because people go through things, and all of that is completely out of your control. And I feel like when people go through certain things like that, a lot of people kind of get mad at God and tell him that it's his fault, and they turn their back away from the Lord. And for you, it's, you're very vocal about being a former homosexual. So would you say that the things that you experienced in your childhood, and like having your father not there for you and molested by men, that led you to the homosexuality, and how did you get out of that?
Okay. So I had the early same-sex attraction feelings at a very young age, as early as I can remember, is probably 7. And so I didn't, and I played with other kids, and other kids, we played the roles with, I was around maybe 8 or 9, played with my neighbors, and we played house, and we ended up playing the house, the husband and the wife thing, so that was interesting, but nothing happened, like, as far as having sex or anything. But where I first had sex with a guy was probably in my early 20s. In high school, I didn't. I was too afraid to come out because there was, people that were judgmental, and I had low self-esteem already from the broken confidence. Father left and didn't believe in myself. And so going through that process, when I finally ended up moving from Corpus Christi, where my hometown was, I dropped out of high school my senior year, first semester, ended up moving to Abilene, Texas, and that's where I ended up about a year later. After that's where I actually came out and started going to the gay bar, and then met a gentleman, and then we built that relationship. But it was more at the moment I felt, looking back, most of my relationships with men were unfaithfulness, because I honestly, growing up in a Christian household, loving Jesus, but I loved sex more than I loved Jesus, and I wasn't following the Lord. And so when I started dating the first gentleman, it was kind of like a little kid going into a candy store. You have all varieties of different things. You're experiencing different kinds of friendships, building relationships. You're also, having a boyfriend and learning their personality, their characteristics. And, they seem like it was a family, but sometimes situation in my heart, I knew that it was wrong. And I felt like something was tugging on my heart and telling me, but I kept ignoring that tug in my heart. So going back with all the relationships, I was unfaithful. And I think looking at it now, and for the past several years, I would look at my boyfriend at the time as a protector, something that I was lacking from my father. And I saw some common similarities, thinking, okay, my question is, why do I feel this way? As back then, as a gay man, why do I have these strong same-sex attractions, God? And I did pray, and I said, I don't understand, but I'm feeling like I'm really drawn to these men. And so at that point, I started putting some of the pieces together, and the enemy plants seeds in your life to kind of get you off the wrong road. And he has an emotional, he influences certain things, but he uses the brokenness. You know how God will use your brokenness and turn it around to heal you, but the enemy uses your brokenness to keep you broken, and even to make you go into a deeper dive of brokenness, so that you don't acknowledge God and ask him for help, and be in that place of, hey, there's no God. You enjoy your flesh, enjoy the what you're feeling right now, being with a gentleman. This guy is protecting you. This guy is nurturing you, doing stuff, and you're having fun. So, but I knew in my heart I wasn't happy. But overall, I had turned my back 3 different times on the Lord. And I remember when I first came back, when I truly in my heart began to understand that I accepted the Lord, and I experienced him in the church called Victory Church in Abilene, Texas. And that was in 90, 8 in August, and I remember I had just broken up with a guy that I was with for about almost 4 years, and we had broken up off and on for the last 6 months. And this guy was the third guy since I had lived in Abilene, and this is the guy that I thought I was going to marry, but we had some relationship issues. We would constantly argue at certain things, and for me, I wouldn't trust him, and because and I only cheated on him once towards the end of the relationship because I got tired of being treated like crap, and I was just feeling like, okay, this is obviously not the guy I'm going to marry. So during that time, I was at a friend's house. We had just broke up with that. I had broke up with that gentleman, or we broke up, and I was crying. I was telling my friend about it, and he said, well, you can sleep in the front room in front of the house. You can stay here for the weekend. And it turned out that my ex-boyfriend that we just broke up showed up. And my friend came in the room and said, hey, your ex is here. I'm like, you know what? That's okay. I'll just shut the door and whatever. And so, because I didn't want to be alone. And it wasn't because I wasn't depressed or anything. I just wanted to be around people. And I didn't want to be around my family because my family, some people didn't accept that at the time. So I stayed in the room crying that night, and my friend and my ex-boyfriend had brought someone else, and they were in the back. They were chit-chatting and watching a movie and stuff in the back entertainment room. And so I remember crying on the bed, and I was just crying myself to sleep, and I said, God, I really need you to change me. I need you to keep it real with me. I need to know the truth. I'm having struggles. I don't understand everything, but I need you to bring mental clarity, spiritual clarity, to what I need. And I need to know it's you without a shadow of doubt, that there's no compromise, manipulation. And so what happened was my ex-boyfriend's friend was going to this Victory Church that she invited me to. And this was all happening within the first few weeks. So I ended up going to the church, and I didn't say anything. I was just observing. When I walked there, I felt this indescribable peace, this presence, and I'm not saying never experienced that. I know I probably experienced that as a kid, but I didn't recognize it. But because I was already so broken emotionally, which is a lot of baggage I was carrying, low self-esteem, and just confused, I ended up giving my life, ended up going to the altar and accepting Jesus into my heart. And at that moment when I was doing that, I felt like the presence was stronger, and I felt like these boulders or heavy weight on my shoulder lifted up. I've never experienced anything like that. And looking back was because I was so hurt that I was literally crying to God that I said, I wanted you to show, I remember my prayer, I want you to be real. I want you to show me that you're real and help me. And he did. And so I was on fire. There was this fire in my heart, this passion for the Lord like I've never experienced. Like he increased my zeal. And he was showing me that he was there and that he was the one who's going to help me to love him more. He was going to help me open up my heart and really guide me into the truth. So for the few months, I ended up, I found Christian songs, and I started listening to a lot more. I threw out my previous old dancing club music. And so at that point, I ended up falling down again back into my ex-boyfriend when he started coming around. And then that lasted not even a few months. We got into argument, and then I ended up getting out of that relationship. And then I ended up getting into another relationship and moving to a different city, which is Dallas-Fort Worth area. And then that was when things got a little worse because that was me turning my back on the Lord. And so when I went to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, I ended up working for a couple of doctors' offices and just really focused on getting myself together and living with this new boyfriend. And I stayed with this new boyfriend for about a year and a half, and he had anger issues. And so basically sometimes the guy would instigate it too. So it's not always one party, it's usually two in my situation. So, there was time that he punched me in the forehead, and he's a really nice guy, and I don't want to say anything negative about him, But I think, I did push those buttons at that time, and because I wasn't unhappy and I wasn't able to talk to anybody, and I think there was frustration coming from my heart because now I was torn because I experienced the Lord. And so I kind of hid and pushed the Lord back in that back burner, even after I experienced what I experienced at Victory Church, the fire, the passion for the Lord. I was really giving in to my fleshly desires. And so from that point on, about a year and a half, I ended up leaving this guy. And I said, you know what? This is it, Lord. And I planned my way out. I saved money, and I said, okay, that's it, Lord. I'm leaving. And so the end of January of 2001, I decided to leave the relationship. I was packing my stuff in my car. I even went several months before that. I went shopping to load up my trunk with, bathroom accessories and all that stuff, because I was already purchasing my apartment, ready to move in by February 1st, 2001. So I finally did. I left. And as soon as that happened, I began to see the Lord orchestrate my steps again. And this is where he was showing me his faithfulness. Out of all me being disobedient, me stepping on his name, meaning disrespecting him because of the experience that I felt. Kind of like, if you walk on a mat and it's nice and clean, you keep walking in dirty, muddy shoes and you don't clean it. You're just like walking all over it and disrespecting him. And God doesn't hate us. God is a God of love, and he's so patient. And just looking back in that time, he's connected me with a friend of mine at that Autumnwood Apartments, who we're good friends now, and she ended up inviting me to the Potter's House in Dallas, Texas, with Bishop T.D. Jakes. So I ended up going to that church, and I ended up immediately started plugging in. So I knew that I needed to get grounded in the Word and the Bible, and I needed to surround myself with biblical, like-minded individuals that keep it real and that are honest, genuine, that love you, and that are in this together for the, as a kingdom family. So I ended up getting into the Bible Institute that the Potter House had offered in the evenings. Fruit of the Holy Spirit, things about Jesus and people that break it down for the Bible. And I ended up getting into the homeless ministry, which was called Raven's Refuge at the time, where we would meet every Friday night. Go out to Dallas. But there was the March, the next month was coming up, and there was a Bishop Noel Jones. It was a revival week, and I think it was the first or second week of March of 2001. Excuse me. And I remember saying, you know what? Let me get these flyers. So I got flyers for this event. Started making copies because I had ran out. And long story short, I ended up going to Dallas on the Gary area. I think I forgot what it's called. It's Oaklawn. It's in that area, and there's a bunch of gay clubs and stuff like that. So I started going out there and handing out these flyers to invite people to come to the revival in March at the Potter's House. I felt the Lord had directed me to do that, and so I did. And so going in with my history and learning with the Lord, I realized at that time, I said, okay, I turned my back on the Lord, but now I'm doing things, I'm getting plugged in, I'm staying focused. And so I still dealt with the feelings, wanting to sleep with the man, but it wasn't as strong as it was before. Until years later, I got my eyes off of the Lord little by little. And then what I mean by that is I left Texas, went to Michigan for a few months. The Lord had directed me to say, okay, it's time to leave Texas. So I did, leave what I know. And so I went to Michigan for a few months, and then I ended up in Florida in 2003. And so it was that following year, I was living in Sarasota. I was working, and I started having these feelings of, okay, I'm not plugged into a church. I've been to several churches. I'm not feeling connected. What's going on? I feel like I'm in the wilderness. I don't know anyone that I can relate to in my situation. Who can I talk to? And so I ended up finding this one where in Tampa, there's Mark Culligan, and he's a former homosexual, and I ended up connecting with him in Tampa and went to his meetings at different churches that they had the same-sex attraction individuals that just left and that were honoring the Lord and wanting to seek the Lord and all that. So I ended up going for a couple months, but then I ended up backsliding again. And so I had this desire to go to clubs. So I go putting God back in the back burner. And so I ended up going to the clubs from Sarasota to Tampa, hanging out, staying with new people that I just met. And I began to have a lot of fun. And I ended up going to clubs by myself. I didn't have an issue because my confidence was growing. And so I just went out and ended up getting into relationship. And just a long story short, I've been through, since then, every time I turned back from the Lord and went back into the situation, it got worse. I had one gentleman that I was for 6 months, and he was physical abusive. And then I'm getting out of that relationship because he gave me like 6 stitches above my right eyebrow, or left eyebrow, I don't remember. And then I ended up getting another long-term relationship, and for 4 years, and I wasn't happy, and I was just like, okay, God, you have to do something. Here I go again. So finally, I ended up breaking. Well, me and this guy were together for 4 years in Florida, and we broke up in 2011, and it was a mutual agreement. He's a great guy. Love him as a friend, as a brother now, always have since our breakup. And I remember the Lord waking me up in December and saying, hey, it's time to come back. And so I did. And so I was living in the balcony and with my ex-boyfriend. He had with his new boyfriend. And I just got up and I just said, okay, Lord, I opened up the back door and I went onto the balcony and I just got on my knees and just started crying. And I just said, okay, God, listen, we're going to have an open, honest, transparent conversation here. I'm not holding anything back from you. You know everything. You know my past conversations, my past my prayers to you, my relationship with you, and I have not been faithful in certain things. I said, this time I want our relationship to be open, honest, and transparent. I know that you're that way, but I need you to help me to build my relationship with you, to stay focused with you on you, to be committed to you like never before, to be faithful to you, and to recognize certain things, but you're going to help me grow, and you're the one that's going to be there to hold my hand the entire process. So I was really, really letting all that loose, because with that thought and pause on that moment, going back a few months before, I had a DUI, or 4 months before, I had a DUI in August 2011, so I hit rock bottom.
Yes, that's all the time we have for tonight, Brett.
Okay, all right, sorry.
That's okay. Thank you so much. God bless you and your story, and we'll keep sharing it.
Oh, you too. Thank you so much, and have a great, blessed night.
You too. Bye.